We rapid speed down to 2,500.
Good point. Wherever reduce speed to 180.
Blackbox.
Hey gang, welcome back again, KP's Blackbox. Today, we're going to just have an open dialogue, have a conversation. There's really no agenda. Actually, the guy on the other side of the table, the guys in the control room, they have no clue what I'm about to talk about, what I'm about to say. So I'm sure they're like, oh crap, Dad, Kenny, KP, what is about to happen here? You don't usually timestamp your podcast either, but today is a special day. It's September 12th, and it's a special day to me because that's my wife and I's anniversary. Mm-hmm. Today, 33 years ago, Kathleen and I made vows to each other. And those vows we took really seriously. And there's been times where those vows were challenged and challenged severely. And, you know, you have to go back to those core principles sometimes of what is it that I believe? What is it that I'm standing for? And sometimes that starts right at home. You know what? The truth is all the time it starts at home, right at home. And part of what we're going to talk about today is the vows that we've made as human beings to each other. And on September 12th, what's always been interesting to me is that Kat and I over the years have seen really horrific things happen the day before our anniversary. And what was weird is we talked about, man, if you're not careful, you can let those things steal your joy and steal the joy of your moment, your intimate moment. That may sound a little selfish. I don't mean it that way. But, you know, there are things that happen in our family before September 12th, some things that happen on the 10th, some things that happen on the 11th that we all know about and that we will toast today, and toast those that will never be forgotten, regardless of where you fall on the spectrum of why or how or what happened. You know, we as human beings, I think, need to vow to be more civil. And before I get into that today, and before we kind of open that up and just start having a conversation about that, I want to go back and vow that we will never forget those who made the ultimate sacrifice leading up to and after September 11th. September 11th is a day you probably don't remember well as far as September 11th, 24 years ago, 2001. I actually have you guys can't see it, but on the other side of this camera over here, there's some old clients of mine that were Blue Angels pilots, and they were flying over New York City, over the skyline, in one of the naval traditional celebrations that happens. I think it's called Fleet Week. They were flying over New York City in formation while the Twin Towers were still erected, still standing. And again, regardless of whether you believe it was an inside job, an outside job, people who just went to work that day, people who just kissed their wife goodbye for the last time, or their husband goodbye, or their kids or grandkids, those people innocently lost their lives for the evil and the hate that was in other people's hearts. Period. It doesn't matter if you're a Saudi. It doesn't matter if you're from Qatar. It doesn't matter if you're from United States. Hate is hate is hate is hate. And you have to vow to not let hate eat you from the inside out. Because it'd be really easy to do that. And some people give over to that and make decisions in their life where they succumb to that hate building up over time. There's a pastor in California, in Redding, pastors a church called Bethel Church. His name's Bill Johnson. And he has a quote that I heard last year that I think is timely for where we are today. And it's about this thing called hate. He says, when you think about things that fester in our lives and things that build up over time, bitterness is murder in diapers. He says, bitterness is murder in diapers. And then when we let something become a bitter root in our life, buildings fall, people die, people get shot, families break up, businesses fail. And the reality is, it doesn't have to be that way. Those of us who are Christians, we subscribe to the belief that because of an original sin that happened over 2,000 years ago, and again, was it longer, was it shorter? I don't know. But it's something that I subscribe to, that I believe, and I believe in my heart that the root of all bitterness is a plain old simple 3-letter word, sin. And that when we succumb to that over and over and over and over again, it manifests in poor behavior. And sometimes the poor behavior could just be lashing out at a friend or family member. It could be murder. Mm-hmm. It could be giving in to the oppression of what you're feeling from past experiences, to past atrocities that were done to you. And that instead of you taking the choice to do something different than something evil, you succumb to it. And all of us, I'm sitting here guilty today. I'm not here preaching to anyone, not qualified to do that, but I just wanted to come out today, September 12th of 2025, and when reflect back on 24 years ago, what happened that was horrific for Americans and the world in general. And there are a lot of people in this world who hate America. They hate those core early values. Even Americans who today hate it. Part of why this guy, Charlie Kirk, is dead today, because people hate when somebody takes a stance on anything that's radically opposed to their position. And some people act out on that in horrific ways. To include governments, to include individuals, to include you and I. And I'm going to make a vow, like I did in my marriage 33 years ago, to be a person who starts thinking through those things and doing my best. I'm not going to say try, because in try, Kathleen and I, one of the arguments that we've had for 33 years is this thing called try. Like, try to pick up a pen, or try to pick up this cup, right? Isaiah, try to pick up your shot glass.
It's either do or don't.
You either do or you don't. There's really no in-between in life. You're either going to take action on something, you're going to behave a certain way, or we're going to choose not to. And those choices have massive, massive consequence and ripple effects. And these ripple effects, often I use the analogy of throwing a pebble into a pond. That little bitty pebble has a massive ripple effect across the entire pond. The energy of that goes far beyond the size of the pebble. And so we have to start thinking more about what is the consequence of our behavior? And are we willing to make a 10-second decision if we really can put ourselves in that position to think, this 10-second decision to fly a plane into a building, to say an evil word to a friend or family member, to squeeze off around when you don't have to. Those are the type things that I think we human beings need to come back to center of the consequence of our decisions. And so we're gonna chat through that today. Cody, if you want to come out, Jacob's going to stay in the control room. But as always, when we do a podcast, a commitment that I made to my buddy Harold Underdown, because he bravely picked his bourbon out of a blind taste test a few months ago, and picked his bourbon right. So I was like, man, you do that. We're going to continue to tell people about Four Branches bourbon, because he got it right. And not only you get that one right, but he got the other bourbons right and which ones they were. And we tried to throw him a little curveball. One was actually a Scotch. And then every time we have a veteran who comes in over the course of the next year, we have them sign the Four Branches logo here. And at the end of the year, I think in May we had him here. We're going to try to have Harold back in the studio in May. And we're going to give this away, or maybe auction it off. Maybe we'll do that again at one of our summer events. But if you're a veteran and you've gone on to be an entrepreneur in any other industry outside of the military, or maybe you're a government contractor now, we'd love to hear from you. We'd love to hear your story. I think I've ran over my cord here. We'd love to hear your story and share it with the world. And you get to sign the Four Branches logo here. But today, Four Branches, we want to toast those who made the ultimate sacrifice, those who are still serving today. We appreciate you as a Marine, as a soldier, and all of us that have served in some capacity. We salute you and thank you for the sacrifices that you've made and continue to make. Cheers. All right. So again, today we're not going to talk about finance. We're not going to talk about veterans. We're going to spend some time, and I feel very impressed to do this, which is just talk about our behavior. The behavior that we all exhibit, as I was saying just a few minutes ago, has consequences. And this week, we've seen those consequences, play out in front of all of our eyes, in front of our kids' eyes, in front of our grandkids' eyes, where, we've done our best in our home to make sure we've tried to shelter little ones from all the rhetoric and all the heinous evil. But we should actually be thinking about that on a daily basis, not just when Charlie Kirk unfortunately loses his life for a stance he took. And again, even though I do agree and subscribe to the positions that Charlie Kirk took, mostly, I don't know that I agree with any man on the planet 100%. And I've actually heard it say before, Isaiah, that if everybody likes you and everybody agrees with you, beware.
Yep.
Because there's probably something nefarious going on. You have to be bold enough to take a stance for what you believe in and what you're passionate about. But in that boldness, I don't think that equals murder.
No, never.
It shouldn't. And, I was thinking on the drive over today, we pick on world leaders quite often for them being the next Hitler or them being the next Mussolini or, you name it. Any heinous leader throughout history, we've taken positions on one side or the other about, what behavior they exhibited, how that played out through history. But my challenge today is it doesn't matter what Donald Trump does. It doesn't matter what Charlie Kirk did. What matters is how you behave. And, years ago, back 2012, many of you know my story, at least know a portion of it, where I completely had to start over again. I'd sold an old financial firm that I had that was pretty doggone successful, had 2 business partners that were top financial pros in the game along with me, and we had a very successful firm. And a series of unfortunate events took place, from infidelity with one partner to another partner just lying. And all of these things compounded to include my naiveness in what was happening, not only in my business, but what was happening in my family. And maybe I was just honestly sticking my head in the dirt. But those choices turned into actions or behaviors. And I want to give the guy the credit for this, and I can't remember. Guys, do me a favor. Pull up Google on the screen here, because I want to make sure I give the right shout out to the right psychotherapist that coined this. It's a formula, and this formula has impacted me since early 2012. I read a book by a guy named Jack Canfield. Jack Canfield most notably is known for his book called Chicken Soup for the Souls. And that's a wonderful book. If you've never read Chicken Soup for the Soul, it is a classic. And I would encourage every person on the planet, read Chicken Soup for the Soul, especially in the environment that we're going through right now, for all of the just hate mongering that's going on both sides. Stop for a minute and think about the consequences of your actions and the choices you make. Guys, you're on Google. Will you pull it up for me on the screen here? So there's Jack's book, Chicken Soup for the Soul. But right to the left of that, actually go back up. That book right there, from a business principle point of view, success principles, you can see it was written in 2004, published first in 2004. But that book had a major, major impact on my mindset after some bad things happened to me in business and happened to me in my life. And the biggest impact that I took away from it was personal responsibility. taking 100% personal responsibility for my behavior, my actions, and to absorb and understand the consequences of my decisions has an impact that has a ripple, like I introduced in the early part of this podcast.
Mm-hmm.
It's a ripple effect. And there was a gentleman in this book, and as I did more research when I started writing my book, which is shameless plug, The Billionaire Within, I'm actually rewriting that now for a second edition and working on it, and I just don't feel at peace to release it yet. But there's a formula that I think all of us need to reflect on. You know what the formula is?
Go for it. Shoot.
You don't know?
Yeah, just.
I've told you many times this formula.
Mhm.
Jake, go to Google and let's just see if we put in this formula what happens. Put E plus R equals O. Oh, it popped up. And I don't even know Brian Knight. I don't know who that is, but go down to the bottom. I don't want to get off here. So E plus R equals O is a concept developed by Jack Canfield, but it actually came from a psychotherapist that was in a master's program, I think, with Jack. So I don't think Jack was the original former of this, but I could be wrong about that. Here's basically what it means. The E in your life is the events. All of us have been exposed to some events this past week. From September 10th, we lost Charlie Kirk, a guy, if you're a conservative, he was like the new breed Rush Limbaugh.
Mm-hmm.
But Charlie was in a league all his own. And my condolences go out to Charlie, his wife Erica, and their 2 children. And, you know, not only pray for them, but for the people who were in that audience that day that saw a heinous act of a poor choice. Those choices have an impact. And some people, just like on 9/11, I remember watching, Isaiah was watching NBC back in the day. And all you guys who are Fox supporters, don't hate me for watching the Today Show in 2001. I was getting ready to leave to go to work. And at the time, I was at a firm called Davenport Dukes, which was a large privately held financial planning firm here in Hampton Roads, and I was a new advisor there. And for whatever reason, I think it was because Kat and I were early celebrating our anniversary. And at that point in time, I think it was 10 years by then, almost 10 years of marriage. And my brother was in town. He was fixing a picket fence for us, my oldest brother, Roger. And we were just sitting around the TV having a morning coffee. I remember it being a very, very, very beautiful morning. You guys were already in school. I think you were home because you
I was
were
young.
Yeah, you were born in what,
3.
98?
I was 3.
Yep. So you probably had a ball in your hand and was probably kicking a ball around or throwing a football.
Probably.
But what I remember is just sitting there on the couch and talking to my brother and Kathleen, and all of a sudden in the skyline, you know, and I think it was Matt Lauer, who was the NBC host, who, again, that guy made choices that didn't end well for him.
Mm-hmm.
I remember going, oh my God, there's an explosion in one of the towers, and cameras go to it quickly, and we think a small airplane has run into the building. And at that point, when that first happened, my Marine mentality started going off, and I'm like, a little airplane, a little Cessna would not make that kind of impact. That doesn't look right. And a big commercial airliner wouldn't be flying at that altitude. That doesn't seem right. But everything in my mind, I was trying to go, hey, Kenny, quit being a negative Nancy, quit being a worry wart. Everything's fine. It's okay. And then as we started watching and watching more and just kind of talking about, man, that we were all feeling bad for the family members who were on that airplane, the family members who were in that building. And at any given time, I think the World Trade Center could house close to 30,000 people at a time. And so our mindset was, man, I hope they can get some firefighters onto that floor and rescue people. And, those that are going to go up and think, they can't go down, so maybe they go up. Can they get helicopters on the building and rescue people? And, so all of these type thoughts before we knew anything about the terror of that day. It was, in the moment, the empathy that we had for those people in the building, those people in the airplane, because you knew they were done. It was quick. Mm-hmm. Now, it probably didn't feel quick to them because they're in there and they know it's probably not going to end well. But as all those thoughts started going through my head, and as the day went on and we learned that it was actually terrorism, then the anger started. Mm-hmm. The what can I do? And, going and gathering our tribe. I remember driving to Christopher Farms Elementary School and getting Noah and Sarah and Jacob out of school. And like I said, I think you and Lizzie were home September, October. Was Lizzie born yet?
Yeah, 2000. She was 1.
She was born. Yeah, she was a year old. Man, time flies.
She was 11 months.
Yeah, she was 11 months old. And by the way, there's another story within that with Lizzie. We had just found out she was diagnosed with agenesis of the corpus callosum, which means she was born missing a piece of her brain. And so that was heavy on our hearts. And we were having to learn how to deal with that and that event. So going back to this formula, guys, events, or E, plus how we respond, how we behave. And there's another piece, I'm going to come back to that in a few minutes and talk about beliefs and behaviors. But that event that happened, there was my individual response, there was a global response, and then there was my individual outcome, and there was a global outcome. So E is the events that happen in your life. You can't control those. The things that happen to you or around you, I had no control over what happened with Charlie Kirk. I had no control over what happened on 9/11. No control. Nothing in my power, nothing that I could do could have changed that day. Mm-hmm. The outcome of that for every person was different. For some people going into a building, right, that fight or flight mentality, mm-hmm. Some people ran into the building out of duty. Some people did it out of just pure adrenaline. I'm convinced of that sometimes people do things that's kind of outer body where they just don't even, they just go into some force action without even thinking about it. They do it. Others who could be tough guys, they could be tough women, they could be, and when that happens, they break down. They run. They go the other way. And I don't think anybody knows for sure until events happen to you how you're going to respond. Mm-hmm. But the events and the outcome everything between those two pieces of the formula, E plus R equals O, the only letter that you can do anything about is what?
The O,
The what?
the outcome, how you respond, or respond.
Right.
But
How-
then that dictates the outcome.
that dictates your outcome.
Mm-hmm.
R is the only thing you and I can control. The only thing. And what I've seen happen over the course of this week is that we really need to get deep with our responses. We need to think about the ripple effect of our responses. And if we're not starting to do that, we're really becoming the other R, reprobates. You're turning yourself over to a callous mind. And if you let that go too often, for too long, you end up in a position where you end up like the young man on the train in Charlotte, North Carolina. That you start listening to the outer voices and you let those outer voices win. In Christianity, we call that oppression or demon possession. So some are oppressed, others are possessed. And I think all of us can experience that from an oppression to possession, depending on our spiritual state and our mental state. And they go hand in hand. And what I think society is full of today is a lot of folks, both young and old, who are in a position where they've just allowed themselves to be oppressed and possessed. And they've turned themselves over to reprobate minds. And they're okay with it. But I don't think that's the whole story.
The analogy that I have, and I've been talking with my friends in private discussions, from what happened to Charlie Kirk to what happened to the young lady on the bus or train in Charlotte, is human beings, first of all, are not meant to see violence like that. Human beings are not wired that way to see gruesome acts of hate and violence.
Which is why people on the train respond
the way they did. All the way down to we have social media where that's accessible to our fingertips immediately. It's almost live. And it's like you said, the outcomes and the reprobate. I look at it like a rock in the ocean with salt water constantly eroding it. After a while, a rock is strong and it's hard. After a while, when it gets exposed to these things over and over, it's like desensitized. Yeah, desensitized to something. The rock ends up cracking, it erodes, and it goes away. Just like if we continue to let, like I deleted my social media today, and I don't want to look at Instagram because it's constant of death at its core. Of you see someone literally lose his life right in front of you on a cell phone.
Well, if it's not death, it's like Bill Johnson said, it's bitterness, and bitterness is murder, aka death, in diapers.
And you leave yourself in that shoreline, constantly getting hit by that saltwater wave over and over, and sooner or later it desensitizes to where people normalize it.
Yeah,
and it's just like the acts of war. I remember you first see, like, all the way back to Ukraine invading Russia. You see that and you're like, oh my gosh, that's so terrible. People are dying on both sides. And then you're 3 years in, you see it so much, you're desensitized to it. That's almost non-existent anymore.
We forget that there's 16, 17, 18, all the way up to
45-year-old men with 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14-year-old kids that are alive at home that their dad might not come home. It sucks.
Yeah. Really does. And that's the reality of where we are today because of how we respond to events. And folks, I'm here to put it out today. What's the action item? You're probably asking, well, Kenny, what do we do? You as an individual respond differently. Your response has a ripple effect. How you behave has a ripple effect. I talk about this in the financial world with my clients all the time, and I have to go back and constantly remind myself of it. And folks, I don't get it right all the time. And I would probably say it's a world, if I look at it collectively, I might actually be lying to you if I'm saying it's 50-50. And I believe there are some people out there who are really, really dialed in. They've got things just ticking in their life in a way that, maybe that they're higher, but everybody screws it up because of sin. However, we have the right, we have the God-given right to overcome that. We have the ability to choose differently. When bad things happen to your life, you've got a choice. You've got a choice in how you respond. I have a choice in how I respond. And those responses have lasting effects that you have to live with the consequences of those behaviors. Now, for those that are reprobates, for those that have turned themselves over to a hard heart, they're probably not coming back. And, unfortunately in society, you have to sequester people like that. Because if not, you then expose yourself to that mental, physical, outward action of cancer that's on them. It's contagious. Here's what I mean by that. You ever been in a party? You ever gone to an event and everybody's there for the same purpose, for the same celebration, for the same good cause? But if one person comes into that room with a bad attitude,
Ruins it.
the frequency, the energy of that individual infests and infects a majority of the room in some form or fashion. Folks, we are all just massive balls of energy the way God created us. And all the way down to and you may think I'm getting off on a rabbit trail here, but women in their menstrual cycles, you can get one alpha lady in the room, and within a month, 2 months, the physiology, the hormones are now all cyclically in the same pattern. It's because of the energy that God made us. He made us to be in relationship. He made us to be in community. And sometimes when we're in community, we're not going to agree.
Yeah. I mean, the very cores and principles that I believe this country was founded on, we've gone very far away from being able, no matter what side you fall on, of all the way left, all the way right, libertarian, in the middle, wherever you fall, there should be a place for you, a Democrat, conservative, libertarian, for you guys to sit down and openly debate without it turning into violence. Violence, and I agree with what everybody's saying, violence has no room in the political environment to where you're pushing your agenda so far as to kill somebody.
Yeah.
That's unacceptable, and that's not what this country was. I believe what this country's core principles are.
There would probably be some that would argue with you on that in the sense that, this country of 13 colonies, were trying to rid themselves of an authoritarian rule of England, and they rebelled. And it started with something just as simple as, one of the things is there was many, but taxation and how taxes on goods were just kind of one way, or tariffs on goods were one way. And it came down to, again, one of those emotions is called greed. And a lot of times we as human beings get really, really greedy. And it causes cancers. It causes people to behave poorly. And, There was a book written years ago. I think I told you and the boys about when you started your dating life. I think it's Jackie Welch. She wrote a book called 10-10-10.
Mm-hmm.
And it really, at the core principles, it gets into 10-second decisions have a repercussion 10 minutes later.
10 months, 10 days,
10
months,
days, 10 months, 10 years
years.
in your lifetime. One little 10-second decision. That guy that got on the roof and lay pronate, he had to go through steps to make little bitty decisions that were just about 10 seconds apart to take another guy's life who had a 4-year-old, who had a newborn, who had a wife. And all because of a position that he stood on.
Mm-hmm.
Another guy said, no, I so diabolically oppose your position that I believe you should die.
Mm-hmm.
And instead of standing there and going, hey, I did it. I'm the one, I shot him. Come get me. What do we all do with our actions when something we know we shouldn't have done?
He ran.
He ran and he hid. Those are principles that go all the way back to Genesis.
Mm-hmm.
When Adam and Eve, and I'm going to take it to the Bible for you, when they both did something that they knew they shouldn't have done,
mm-hmm.
they had the reason, they had the E plus R equals O that God embedded in them. And he just said, hey, here's just one area of your life that you need to avoid. And it's there, folks. It was there so that they could have the humanity of choice. Mm-hmm. They could have the ability to choose between.
And that begs a question for me is when you go through the E plus R equals O, what is the event in that kid's life that pulled the trigger? What's the event in his life that led him to want to do that?
I would say it was probably multiple, that he let one little thing compound into another. Mm-hmm. Compounded. And I don't think he was a kid. He was probably your age.
He was 22.
He was 22. So the impressions that were made upon him, I would say since probably 12 years old. My brother-in-law is a therapist, and we've talked through some of these things, is that in the early stage of your life, up to about 12 years old, your parents get 75% of that impression. Mm-hmm. The impression you make on your children, mm-hmm. I don't want to say their names on here, but the impression that you make on your children from birth to about 12 years old mm-hmm. is the most important time in that child's life. Mm-hmm. Because from 12 forward, guess who's got the other 75%? It ain't your mom and dad. It's society. It's who they commune with. Mm-hmm. It's who they're in community with. And so, folks, if you're listening today and you got a child or a grandchild from 0 to 12, pull them in close. Love on those kids. Teach them principles, your biblical truths, your truths of your family and your culture, your community, and they won't depart from it. They'll come back to it, even with that other impression of 75%, say from 12 on. But what I would probably say, Isaiah, is this young man had 22 years of the ripple effect of impression after little impression after little impression. The ripple just kept getting bigger. And he became emboldened to say, well, nobody else is going to shut Charlie up. I'll do it. Mm-hmm. And take it back to 9/11. Nobody else is going to suppress America. Us 13, 14, whatever number of dudes it was that got on the plane, and whatever number of people that supported them in that, whether you believe the conspiracy theories that the government, U.S. government was involved in that, whether you believe the Mossad was involved in that, all of those people in those organizations as individuals had a choice. And those individual choices collectively put us in a position of where we are today. And what I'm saying all this for today, what's the purpose, Kenny? Why are you talking about this? Well, what's the action? Stop and think about your individual decisions. You do have an impact. Your life, even what I'm saying today on this podcast, is going to go out where everybody in the world who trips upon our show, my words in some form or fashion have energy, have power. They go out into the universe. And I'm choosing to say, hey, can you stop for a minute and tell me what you radically love? What do you have radical love for? And whatever you have radical love for, you have power over. Anything that you detest, anything that you hate, or anything that you do not have radical love for, you have no power and authority. And I've come to that in my own life in some situations over the past few weeks. There are things I have no authority to speak into. I have no power over. And so I have to choose to just bite my lip. And sometimes I don't. But today, this is my podcast. This is my show. These are my cameras. And I have the authority to be able to sit down with my son and have a conversation.
Yeah.
It's really been more of a
Well, I think
not really a dialogue, but
I think when you sit there and you tell someone, like, hey, stop and think about something, I think first, a lot of society is caught up in the refinement period, as in, and this is going to get kind of biblical real quick, but the refinement period in other people is not our task or duty to go refine somebody else, because we can't do that for somebody else. It's God refining them. I think where that starts, though, is each individual's character, and what their character shows and represents helps build in that refinement period to a certain person that you're trying to win over, or I guess spread the word to, or whatever you want to do with that person, or whatever your opinion is. It's not going to that person and telling them out of hate how they're wrong, or their view on things is dumb or stupid, or you don't know what you're talking about. It's first meet them with kindness, and then give somebody an ear. Like some people, listen to them, see what they have to say, and then kindly, how do you go back and not combat them, but tell them your opinion, whether it's fact or fiction or not. You tell them your opinion, and then over time, sway someone through your character, not through your harsh, decisive words.
yeah.
Show them through your actions, okay, this person's doing something right. He seems happy, or she seems happy, and they're living this life. How do I get to what they have?
Yeah.
And that's through your character, I think. And I think that a lot of the times what we see now is a lot of hate being spread, where it's F you, F this, I don't like this. It makes people uncomfortable.
Yeah.
To have to own up, hey, maybe what I originally thought may be wrong or right. And I think that refinement period, I think a lot of human beings try to put their hands in it when it's not even them that should be putting their hand. They're trying to chisel something they can't chisel.
Well, refinement equals, I want to refine to control this the way I want it.
And that's it. It also comes to an individual choice to let that refinement happen.
Right. Here's a thought, and again, I heard this from a pastor. A lot of the wisdom that I've heard has been in public places, both in the spiritual realm and sometimes in business conferences, where I hear business people, man, just drop some real wisdom that, like, man, that had nothing to do with the economics of a situation or the finance of a situation or the financials of a situation. But I don't know who to give credit to this, but I'm gonna take this and share it with you. What I heard in a conference once is that life is much like an apple tree, and when we think about life as we go through a seed that's planted, And a seed that's planted becomes you, the individual. And your individual life over time, thanks guys, that's it. Your individual life over time, in the form of that seed, turns into this mature adult. Well, just like in the principles of farming, when you plant a seed,
Mm-hmm.
it doesn't stop there. There has to be someone there
To cultivate it.
to cultivate it. So the farmer has to help the seed cultivate. That farmer, in the context of what I'm talking about, is the people around you,
Mm-hmm.
the people in your community that you let speak into your life. The farmer being those family members that speak in your life. And sometimes those family members can be pretty rotten, right? Can be pretty bad. And so that has an infection or a fungus on the seed. But in carrying out this concept and this thought, when you think about this apple tree and its seeds, all of us want to go straight to the harvest. We want to pick some apples. We want to make some apple pie. We want to eat some apples off the tree. We want to enjoy our harvest. The truth of the matter is that before that apple tree ever sprouts up, the base of that apple tree has to go deep and wide.
Mm-hmm.
And if it doesn't, it will succumb to its own harvest.
Mm-hmm.
It'll fall because that root system has to go deep, has to go wide because of all the support of the fruit that it bears,
Mm-hmm.
weighing down on that tree, weighing down on that root ball system. It has to be strong. And that takes community. That takes allowing people to cultivate your life with you.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, I've heard it say that you take 2 or 3 of the closest people in your life, and I'll show you the character of a man. They look a lot like the 3 or 4 people around them. And so think about the people that you're allowing to speak into your life today. Think about the people that you're allowing to help cultivate your mindset, your philosophies, your belief systems. And if the people around you are bringing you into a position where you feel more hardened, you feel like you're headed more towards that kind of reprobate mindset, can I encourage you to find new friends, to think more clearly about the outcome of what that's going to be in your life? And until you're healthy, you can't go back to the old cultivators and do anything about them. They have to choose to change. They have to choose to be better. And the world that we're in right now, I think we get in echo chambers. And we get in these echo chambers of hearing what we want to hear, of having our ears tickled, of having our hearts warmed with words that we want and affirmations that we want. And sometimes what's happening is that we're getting false information. We're getting information that's not healthy for your root ball. It's not healthy for that tree system. It's creating another unknown fungus that you don't realize that the fruit that you start bearing is bad fruit. And echo chambers cause that. I would encourage you to get in an environment where you have healthy people in your life, but you're also open to check yourself and to check your values, your beliefs, by listening to others and listening with an open mind, listening with an open ear. And I'll give that shout out again to Charlie Kirk. He did not compromise his beliefs, but he allowed people to share their belief system. And if you didn't come prepared to stand on your beliefs with facts and factual information, you got embarrassed. You got beat down. And I think, unfortunately for Charlie, a young man was probably embarrassed so much that the core of him turned so rotten that he thought, well, I'm gonna get you. And we lost a good dude who I think was headed down a path of really helping young people in our nation to get outside of their echo chambers and to be independent thinkers and to be contributors to society in a way where we could approach people with love. And love is not tickling their ears. Love is saying, hey, here's the facts. What are your facts? And where can we compromise where the two facts don't always meet up and they don't always agree, but where can we have compromise? Mm-hmm. And, it's unfortunate that there was no compromise to an extent where a man had to lose his life, and the ripple effect of that. We can either choose to let that continue to go down a bad path, or we can choose that our outcome is going to be we're not going to let that turn us into reprobates. That's not going to make our hearts harder. It's going to make us more passionate to radically love people in a radical way. That's all I got.
That's good.
Hey, we love you guys. Hopefully that didn't come off as a rant, but I wanted to kind of break away from our normal podcast and just put out there that the formula of E plus R equals O in your life matters. God in your life matters. And you may not receive that. You may not like that. That may not tickle your ears. But if you'd like to come debate me on that, I'd be happy to have a loving, but not a near tickling conversation, but a loving conversation of we don't have to agree, but we can find compromise in our different belief systems. And that is the principles of what our country was built on. Mm-hmm. And what good, decent human beings with civility should be exhibiting towards each other. So, hey, we love you guys. Thank you if you listen to this whole thing today and you want to hear more about what we share with our community. Hit the like button, subscribe, and I'd love to hear some comments. We'll put in the link, the success principles for those of you who are entrepreneurs. I think it's a must-read book, Jack Canfield's Success Principles. If you just need some encouragement, one, the Bible's not a bad place to start. And, I would probably say, hey, if you want some love, start in Proverbs. But then I would say Chicken Soup for the Soul, if you're a little scared to pick up your Bible. Read what some of the folks that Jack Canfield interviewed in that book. And we hope to hear from you. Love you guys. Take care.
Blackbox.